You are a beginning violinist, this video is for you. Everybody's always in a hurry to learn their notes and figure out how to hold the bow so that they can jump into playing music. However, one of the very foundational things in violin playing is posture. Today, I'm going to walk you through a few posture mistakes that are commonly made by beginners. Hi, I'm Ariadna, and this is Mindful Strings, where I help you learn the violin on your own time and love it. I teach one-on-one violin lessons full-time in my studio in Boston, Massachusetts, and I work with students of all ages. I wanted to create an online resource for those of you who are learning on your own and might have lots of questions about technique and what order you should do things in. So hopefully these videos make your journey a little bit easier. If you're interested in going deeper, check out the free 15-minute guide I put together for you by clicking the link down below. I talk about some exercises that are certainly going to elevate your playing. If you're ready to shave years off of your violin learning journey, let's get started. So as an Alexander technique trained teacher, I can tell you that posture is a very important element of playing the instrument because your body is kind of like the first instrument that you have to deal with, and then we add this wooden box that makes sound and the stick that helps us make the strings vibrate. But you have to be aware and mindful of your body's positioning and movement. So the number one thing is that I recommend you practice standing up. There's nothing really wrong with playing sitting down, but it's ideal that you are able to spend at least some of the time standing up, making sure that your weight is evenly distributed on both legs. And especially if you're planning to play solo repertoire and maybe even perform, you should be practicing in the same way that you're going to be performing in. Now, if you plan to be an orchestra player or play a lot of chamber music in quartets or trios where you're going to be sitting down, it does make sense to spend some time practicing sitting down. But just as long as you add some variability and allow your body some freedom to move, you're in good hands. The next thing is all about how you hold the violin. So I often see this drooping situation going on where the violin goes down. Maybe you're leaning on your body with your left arm. And so this kind of creates a bit of a collapse. And it's going to be much harder for you to play fast and have freedom of movement in the left arm. It also actually impedes your breathing, so you want to make sure that you stay nice and upright with your rib cage being able to move and expand as you breathe. It's very common also for string players to kind of hold their breath and get all tensed up. So noticing your breathing is important. You want the violin to be roughly parallel to the floor and seeing some space between your elbow and your torso is good. The next thing that stems out of the same issue is your left shoulder. If you don't have proper setup in the form of a chin rest and shoulder rest that really work for you and make holding the violin comfortable, you might see yourself lifting the shoulder. There are definitely many professional violinists who are beautiful players who don't use a shoulder rest, but that does not mean that all of us should follow their lead. It just means that it works for them. And sometimes, even when a person has a less than ideal setup, it just does not bother them. They could be a prodigy, or they could have a really, really solid technical foundation of many years that they just learned to work around it. So I recommend that most of you beginners, especially if your only educational resource for violin is videos like this, or tutorials, or online lessons, that you stick to finding something that will allow you to hold the violin without having to raise your shoulder. You run into the same issues. You're going to slow yourself down in the left hand and potentially even develop some health issues like carpal tunnel and tendinitis. This, of course, goes for the right shoulder as well. When you're bowing, focus on your arm straightening and bending at the elbow while having a flexible, soft wrist and hand and fingers. You want to avoid raising this part of the shoulder. So the arm is moving, but the shoulder stays neutral. You don't want to pull it down. You don't want to push it up. The next thing that I very commonly see is what I call the broken back. It's when students try to keep their violin upright, but they do it by leaning back. What you end up with is this kind of rounding in the mid to lower back. This puts a lot of strain on the back. And eventually, if you've practiced long enough, you're going to feel like your back is hurting. So not to mention, it causes kind of uneven distribution of weight and puts a lot of tension on your neck and basically just kind of throws off your entire system. So try to notice whether you are lifting your instrument with your arms or if you're helping it out by using your back. If you're not sure, use the door frame by standing next to the door frame with your feet up against it and your butt and your back and your head up against it. So this is just a kind of a rough guideline. It gives you the idea. You shouldn't feel stiff or like you have to be straight as a stick, but it'll just give you an idea if you're leaning back and if your hips or your belly are moving away from the door frame. Another seemingly harmless habit that is not your friend is when you are leaning on one leg while playing. So if you're leaning, typically I think people tend to lean on their left. I used to play like that when I first started out as a kid and caused a lot of technical issues that I had to spend many years undoing and relearning. So please try to pay attention to where your feet are. They should be roughly hip width apart, and you want to feel grounded so that your body weight is evenly distributed. The violin and the bow come up, the shoulders are released, your neck stays vertical, and then you use the weight of your head to help support the violin. Putting more strain on one side of the body is once again going to potentially cause some pain, uneven muscle tone, muscle tension, and it's going to affect your sound and how fast your fingers are able to move. Let me know down in the comments below if you have had any of these postural issues that you've noticed yourself go through, and also if you have any questions. Happy mindful practicing, and I'll see you next time.